You say you feel lost. You say you can't hear your intuition anymore. But maybe it's not because your soul stopped speaking. Maybe it's because your world got too loud. Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Think about it. When was the last time you sat in complete silence? Not paused music, real silence. The kind where you hear your own heartbeat. Can't remember? You're not alone. We live in a world that's terrified of quiet moments. We fill every pause with podcasts, every meal with Netflix, every walk with music. We become addicted to noise, and in doing so, we've silenced the most important voice we'll ever hear. Our own. This isn't just about meditation or mindfulness. This is about something deeper. Something Jung understood that most people miss entirely. In this video, we dive into the silence you've been avoiding. Because that's exactly where your soul is waiting. This is the story of how one man found his way back to himself and how you can too. Meet Jack, 33 years old. Software engineer. Lives alone in a downtown apartment. Every morning starts exactly the same way with a screen. 6:30 a.m. Alarm buzzes. Before his feet hit the floor, his hand is already reaching for his phone. 17 notifications overnight. Work emails. News alerts. Instagram likes from a photo he posted and forgot about. Text from his mom asking if he's eating enough vegetables. Coffee brewing. Phone propped against the sugar container. Scrolling through Twitter while the caffeine kicks in. Breaking news about a celebrity divorce. Political outrage he'll forget in an hour. A friend's workout selfie. An ad for productivity software he doesn't need. Sound familiar? This is Jack's morning routine. Has been for. God, how long now? 3 years? 5? But here's what's interesting. Jack isn't unhappy exactly. He's just disconnected. Like he's watching his own life through a window instead of actually living it. He's got a decent job. Decent apartment. Decent friends. Everything is decent. But decent isn't the same as alive. Scrolling through his feed, something catches his eye. A simple quote shared by someone he barely knows. When the body goes silent, the soul speaks. He pauses. For maybe 3 seconds. His thumb hovers over the screen. When was the last time his body was actually silent? When was the last time he wasn't consuming some form of media, some form of distraction? He tries to remember. Can't. The moment passes. He keeps scrolling. But something about those words lingers. Like a seed planted in soil that's been waiting for rain. Jack finishes his coffee, grabs his keys, and heads to work. Podcast already queued up for the commute. Can't have dead air, right? But for the first time in months, maybe years, a question follows him out the door. What would happen if I actually listened to the silence? He shakes his head. Weird thought. Probably just needs more coffee. But the question doesn't go away. Jack used to feel different. As a kid, he'd get excited about random things. The way sunlight looked through his bedroom window in the morning. The sound of rain on the roof. The smell of his grandmother's kitchen. Everything felt vivid. Alive. Like the world was painted in high definition. Yeah? It's like someone turned down the saturation on his entire life. He can't pinpoint when it happened. There wasn't a specific moment where joy packed its bags and left. It just faded. Like a photograph left in the sun too long. Tuesday evening. Jack meets his friend Sarah for coffee. She's one of those friends who tells you the truth even when it stings. I don't know what I want anymore, Jack admits, stirring sugar into his latte for the 3rd time. Sarah shrugs. Welcome to adulthood, dude. We all feel like that. Do we though? Is feeling disconnected from your own desires just normal now? Have we all just accepted numbness as the price of growing up? I used to have dreams, Jack continues. Remember being a kid and wanting to be an astronaut? Or a writer? Or literally anything that felt bigger than yourself? Yeah, and then reality hits. Bills. Responsibilities. Life. But something about that answer sits wrong with Jack. Like accepting a diagnosis without getting a second opinion. That night, lying in bed with his phone charging on the nightstand, Jack remembers something Carl Jung wrote. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. What if the numbness isn't just adult life? What if it's avoidance? What if he's been running from something his soul is trying to tell him? The thought is uncomfortable. Easier to blame external circumstances. The economy. Work stress. Modern life in general. But what if the problem isn't out there? What if it's the constant noise drowning out an inner voice that's been trying to get his attention for years? Jack rolls over, pulling the pillow over his head. But the question follows him into sleep, what am I avoiding? Let's look at Jack's relationship with silence. Spoiler alert, he doesn't have one. 7 a.m., alarm goes off. Immediately checks phone for overnight notifications. 7:15 a.m. shower with Spotify playlist. Can't think in silence. 7:30 a.m. breakfast while watching YouTube videos about productivity. Ironic, right? 8 a.m. commute with podcast blasting. True crime today. Something about a murder in Wisconsin. Noon, lunch break spent scrolling Instagram. Eating a sandwich while watching cooking videos. 6 p.m. gym with aggressive hip-hop. Needs something to drown out the voice that says he should quit after 10 minutes. 8 p.m. dinner with Netflix. Some show he's not really watching but can't turn off. 11 p.m. falls asleep to ASMR videos. Because actual silence makes him anxious. See the pattern? Jack treats silence like it's radioactive. But why? One evening his Bluetooth speaker dies mid-song. The sudden quiet hits him like a physical force. His chest tightens. Breathing gets shallow. The walls of his apartment seem to close in. He scrambles to find the charger, muttering under his breath. Come on, come on. Finally, music fills the room again. His nervous system settles. But the experience sticks with him. Why does silence feel so threatening? Carl Jung had a theory about this. He believed until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What if Jack's need for constant noise isn't preference? What if it's protection? What if silence isn't empty but full of things he's not ready to hear? Later that week, stuck in traffic with his phone dead, Jack experiences 5 minutes of involuntary quiet. No podcast. No music. Just him and his thoughts. And his thoughts are loud. Anxious. Critical. You're wasting your life. You're 33 and still don't know what you want. Everyone else has it figured out. You're falling behind. No wonder he avoids silence. But here's what Jung understood. The voice that criticizes you isn't your soul speaking. It's just the noise inside your head. Inspired by a particularly zen Instagram post, Jack decides to get serious about meditation. He downloads Headspace. 10 minutes a day. How hard could it be? Day 1. Find a comfortable position and simply breathe. Jack sits cross-legged on his bedroom floor. Closes his eyes. The British narrator's voice is soothing. Notice your breath going in and out. 30 seconds in, his mind starts sprinting. Did I lock the front door? That presentation is due Thursday. Should I text back my sister? Why does my knee hurt sitting like this? Am I breathing wrong? This is stupid. 1 minute in, he opens his eyes to check the timer. 9 minutes left. Feels like 9 hours. 2 minutes in, he quits. Meditation isn't for me, he tells himself. My mind's too active. But that night, Jack has the most vivid dream he's had in years. He's underwater. Not drowning, floating. Above him, the surface churns with chaos. People running. Sirens wailing. The noise of the world. But down here? Perfect silence. Perfect peace. He can hear his own heartbeat. Feel his own presence. No notifications. No demands. No voice telling him he should be somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. For the first time in God, how long? He feels home. He wakes up startled. Not by fear, but by how good the silence felt. Maybe the problem isn't that meditation is hard. Maybe the problem is that the noise inside his head has gotten louder than the noise outside. Jung wrote, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. But what if you've spent so long avoiding your heart that you've forgotten how to find it? Jack sits on the edge of his bed remembering the dream. The peace of being underwater. The silence that felt like coming home. What would it take to find that silence while awake? The question follows him to work, through meetings, into the evening. For the first time in years, Jack is curious about something that doesn't involve a screen. Friday afternoon. Jack does something completely out of character. He books a cabin in the mountains. Last minute. No research. Just clicks reserve now on the first listing he finds. No Wi-Fi. No cell service. Just him and, whatever happens. His coworkers think he's having a breakdown. You're going where? Alone? Without internet? Dude, what if there's an emergency? What if someone needs to reach you? What if you get bored? Good questions. Jack doesn't have good answers. Saturday morning, 2 hours from the city, his phone loses signal. The silence in his car becomes noticeable. No podcast. No music. Just engine noise and his own breathing. It should feel peaceful. Instead, it feels like free-falling. The cabin is smaller than the photos suggested. 1 room. Fireplace. Kitchen table that's seen better decades. But it's clean. Quiet. Too quiet. Jack unpacks his bag, checks his phone out of habit. No bars. The panic is immediate and irrational. What if work needs him? What if his mom calls? What if something important happens and he misses it? But slowly, very slowly, the panic fades. He makes coffee the old way. No Keurig. No rush. Just water, heat, and patience. The first sip tastes different. Not because the coffee is better, but because he's actually present for it. No scrolling. No multitasking. Just coffee and morning light through dusty windows. Hour by hour, his nervous system downshifts. He hears wind moving through pine trees. Individual birds having conversations he never noticed before. His own footsteps on wooden floors. His own heartbeat in quiet moments. By evening, something remarkable happens. The constant tension in his shoulders releases. The knot in his jaw he didn't know was there loosens. For the first time in months, maybe years, Jack's body starts to breathe properly. In the journal he brought but never planned to use, he writes, "The silence is scary, but it's starting to feel like home." Sunday morning, he wakes up without an alarm. Natural light, natural rhythm. No notifications waiting. No urgent emails. No breaking news about things he can't control anyway. Just him. Just silence. Just the possibility that maybe this is what peace actually feels like. The realization hits him like cold water. He's been avoiding this his entire adult life. Sunday morning, Jack decides to walk. Not for exercise. Not for steps. Not for content. Just to walk. The trail behind the cabin winds through forest that feels older than civilization. Each step is deliberate. Mindful. Present. No earbuds. No agenda. Just feet on dirt and breath in lungs. And then, something starts happening. Memories surface like bubbles in still water. The novel he started 3 years ago. 40 pages about a man who inherits his grandfather's bookstore. He was excited about it. Really excited. But then work got busy and Netflix released a new series and the document just sat there. The guitar in his closet. Still has calluses from college when he'd play for hours. Wrote songs that weren't great but were his. When did he stop? Can't remember exactly. Just did. The photography class he quit after 2 sessions because he was too busy. The teacher said he had an eye for composition. He felt proud. Then embarrassed for feeling proud. Then nothing. These weren't just hobbies he abandoned. They were pieces of his soul he buried under deadlines and obligations and other people's expectations of who he should be. Jack stops walking and sits on a fallen log. When did I stop doing things I loved? He asks the forest. The forest doesn't answer with words. But in the silence he feels something stir. Not a voice exactly. More like a gentle nudge from a part of himself he'd forgotten existed. His creative self. His curious self. His authentic self. The part that doesn't care about productivity or optimization or being impressive on social media. The part that just wants to create something beautiful because creating beautiful things makes life worth living. Walking back to the cabin, Jack realizes something profound. His soul didn't disappear. It just got quieter than the noise. In his journal that evening, he writes, "Your soul doesn't scream. It whispers. And we drown it in volume." For the first time in years, Jack feels excited about something that isn't external validation. He feels excited about becoming himself again. Sunday night. Last night in the cabin. Jack builds a fire. Not because he needs the heat, but because fire has a way of making you honest with yourself. Sitting in the orange glow, watching flames dance like they've been dancing since humans first discovered warmth, Jack does something he hasn't done in years. He talks to himself. Out loud. "What do I want?" he whispers to the fire. The question hangs in the smoky air like a prayer waiting for an answer. But instead of rushing to fill the silence with assumptions or should-wants or what other people expect wants, he just waits. And then, from somewhere deeper than thought, quieter than anxiety, another question emerges. What do you need to heal from? This isn't the voice of his inner critic. That voice is harsh, demanding, never satisfied. This is something different. Older. Wiser. Gentler. Jack doesn't cry. He just listens. Because for the first time in years, someone is asking him questions that matter. And that someone is himself. What do you need to heal from? The answer comes slowly, like morning light. The need to be busy all the time. The fear that stillness means laziness. The belief that his worth is measured by his productivity. The shame around wanting things that don't make money. The terror that if people really knew him, they wouldn't like what they found. Jung's words echo in the crackling fire. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Jack has been dreaming his whole adult life. Dreaming that success would make him happy. Dreaming that busyness would make him important. Dreaming that noise would protect him from the scary stuff inside. But tonight, sitting by this fire, he starts to wake up. What do I want? He asks again. And this time, the answer comes clear as flame. I want to remember who I was before the world told me who I should be. The fire pops and settles. The night grows deeper. For the first time in years, Jack feels awake. Not caffeinated awake. Soul awake. Monday morning. Back to the city. The contrast hits Jack like walking from a cathedral into a construction site. Car horns. Sirens. Construction noise. People talking loudly on phones while walking. The constant electronic hum of a world that never stops consuming energy. But something's shifted in Jack. The noise feels offensive now. Like someone cranked up the volume on a song he never wanted to hear in the first place. At work, his coworkers notice immediately. How was your weird hermit weekend? They tease. Did you go full caveman? Start a fire with sticks? I bet you were checking your phone every 5 minutes, weren't you? Jack just smiles. How do you explain that you spent 2 days remembering who you actually are? Tuesday, he doesn't check his phone until 10 a.m. His anxiety spikes, then settles. Nothing urgent happens. World keeps spinning. Wednesday, he eats lunch in the small park across from his office instead of at his desk scrolling Twitter. Watches people walk by. Notices things. A woman feeding pigeons. An old man reading an actual paper book. Kids playing on swings. Life happening in real time instead of through screens. Thursday, his team suggests after-work drinks. Jack says no. Come on, man. You're being antisocial. But Jack realizes something crucial. Protecting his inner silence isn't antisocial. It's self-preservation. Because losing that connection to himself now would be like losing the most important relationship he's ever had. Friday evening, Jack sits in his apartment with his phone in another room. The silence feels friendly now. Like an old friend he'd forgotten how to visit. His soul isn't quiet anymore. It's just soft. And soft things need protection from loud worlds. Jung wrote, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Jack is starting to understand what that means. It's not just accepting your flaws or your past mistakes. It's accepting that you have an inner life that matters more than your outer image. It's accepting that solitude isn't loneliness. It's accepting that listening to yourself is the most radical act in a world designed to distract you from yourself. Jack starts creating what he calls sacred silence. Not meditation exactly. Just space. Room for his soul to breathe. Morning ritual, no phone until 10 a.m. Coffee in actual silence. Watching light change through his kitchen window instead of consuming other people's thoughts first thing in the morning. The withdrawal is real. His hand reaches for his phone out of habit. His brain craves the dopamine hit of notifications. But slowly the craving fades. Evening ritual, no screens after 9 p.m. Journal instead of Netflix. Reading actual books instead of scrolling feeds. Weekend rule, at least 2 hours of complete quiet. No podcasts. No music. No inputs. Just him and whatever emerges from the silence. His friends don't understand. You're becoming one of those weird meditation people. What's wrong with staying connected? You're missing out on everything. But Jack's productivity at work actually improves. When your mind isn't constantly scattered across 17 different inputs, it can focus. Novel concept. His creativity returns like a river after a dam breaks. He starts writing again. Not for anyone else. Not for publication or praise. For himself. Because creating something from nothing feels like remembering a language he used to speak fluently. One evening, his sister calls from across the country. You sound different, she says. Calmer. Less scattered. I'm learning to listen, Jack tells her. To what? To myself. There's silence on the line. Not awkward silence. Thoughtful silence. I don't think I know how to do that anymore, she admits. I didn't either. But it's like riding a bike. You never really forget. You just stop practicing. After they hang up, Jack writes a quote on his bathroom mirror. In silence, we meet the self we were never introduced to. 3 months into this experiment, Jack realizes something profound. The world didn't get quieter. He just stopped absorbing all of it. And in that space, in that silence, something beautiful is growing. Something that was always there, just waiting for room to breathe. 4 months later, Jack's ex-girlfriend texts out of nowhere. Hey, been thinking about you. We should talk. They meet at the coffee shop where they used to argue about whose turn it was to do dishes. Where she'd scroll through her phone while he talked. Where he'd fill every uncomfortable silence with nervous chatter. She studies his face like she's trying to solve a puzzle that used to make sense. You've changed, she says. Not accusation. Not compliment. Just observation. Jack nods. I'm not sure who I used to be, but I know who I'm becoming. What does that even mean? Her voice has that edge it always got when he said things she couldn't immediately categorize. How do you explain that you've spent most of your adult life drowning out the most important voice you'll ever hear? How do you tell someone that silence taught you more about yourself than years of therapy and self-help books combined? I stopped interrupting my own thoughts, he says simply. She looks confused. Maybe annoyed. That's weird, Jack. You used to be fun. Now you're all zen and distant. And there it is. The thing relationships often can't survive, one person changing while the other stays the same. She wants the old Jack back. The one who filled every pause with words, every quiet moment with activity, every uncomfortable truth with distraction. But that Jack was exhausted. That Jack was performing a version of himself that other people found palatable. This Jack is awake. I'm not distant, he says gently. I'm just present. Maybe for the first time in years. The conversation ends awkwardly. She leaves frustrated. He leaves peaceful. Walking home, Jack realizes something bittersweet. Not everyone will understand your journey toward yourself. Some people love the version of you that was half asleep. And that's okay. But he can't go back to sleepwalking through his own life just to make other people comfortable. Jung understood this. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Even if it means some people won't recognize who that is. 1 year later, Jack returns to the same cabin where his awakening began. But this time, the drive up is different. No anxiety about being disconnected. No panic about missing something important. Just anticipation. Like visiting an old friend. The cabin looks exactly the same. Same dusty windows. Same wooden floors that creak in the same places. Same fireplace waiting for another honest conversation. But Jack is different. The silence doesn't scare him anymore. It welcomes him home. He sits on the same rock by the same river where everything started to shift a year ago. The water flows exactly as it did then. Constant, peaceful, unhurried, indifferent to the noise of the world above. In his journal, he writes, "My soul didn't stop speaking. I just finally stopped interrupting." He thinks about all the people still running from silence, still afraid of what they might hear if they actually listened to themselves. The irony isn't lost on him. In a world obsessed with communication, we've forgotten how to hear the most important voice of all, our own. Jack's phone sits in his car, turned off. Not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of self-respect. For 2 days, he'll listen to Wind instead of podcasts. Watch Fire instead of Netflix. Think his own thoughts instead of consuming everyone else's opinions. And something beautiful happens. He starts getting excited about going home. Not because the silence becomes boring, but because he's ready to bring this peace back into the noise. Ready to protect it. Nurture it. Share it with people who are ready to hear it. The second night, sitting by the fire, Jack whispers the same question that started everything. What do I want? But now the answer comes immediately, clear as starlight. I want to help other people remember who they were before the world told them who they should be. The fire crackles its approval. For the first time in his adult life, Jack knows exactly what he wants to do with the rest of it. This story isn't really about Jack. It's about all of us who've lost the sound of our inner voice. Right now, as you listen to this, your soul is trying to tell you something. But can you hear it over the noise? The notifications. The news. The constant chatter of a world that profits from your distraction. Think about your own relationship with silence. When's the last time you sat in complete quiet for more than 30 seconds? When's the last time you asked yourself what you actually want and waited for an honest answer? When's the last time you did something creative just because it felt good to create? If you can't remember, you're not alone. We've built a civilization that's terrified of inner silence. Because inner silence leads to inner awareness. And inner awareness leads to questions about whether we're actually living the lives we want to live. And those questions are dangerous to a system that needs us distracted, consuming, and disconnected from our own wisdom. But here's what Carl Jung understood that most people miss. Your soul doesn't need volume. It needs space. Silence isn't the absence of life. It's the beginning of it. Jung spent his entire career studying the human psyche. He discovered that our greatest wisdom doesn't come from external sources. It doesn't come from gurus or books or courses or podcasts. It comes from within, but you can't access it in noise. You can't hear your authentic self over the sound of everyone else's expectations. So here's your challenge if you're ready for it. Find 1 hour this week. Just 1 hour. Turn off your phone. Put it in another room. Sit in silence. Don't try to meditate. Don't try to be spiritual. Don't try to do anything. Just listen. Listen to your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own thoughts without immediately judging them or trying to fix them or distract yourself from them. Ask yourself, what do I want? And then, wait. Don't rush to answer. Don't fill the silence with the first thing that comes to mind. Just wait. Because your soul has been waiting your entire life for this conversation. And it won't happen in noise. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you can't become who you truly are while you're busy being who everyone else wants you to be. Your soul is speaking right now. The question is, are you finally ready to listen?